Dearest Gentle listeners, you are listening to the Ladies Bridgerton, the talk of the town. We are your effervescent host, your neighborhood-friendly Kiwi, Tash from Middle-earth, New Zealand.
And Patty, Regency romance enthusiast, whose current chapter of her story takes place in Ohio.
Settle down onto your favorite settee as we delve into the lives of the elite and illustrious ladies, lords, and royalty of the ton. This Bridgerton podcast is two friends talking romance, symbolism, Easter eggs, and deep diving into the connections of our favorite characters. This podcast covers both books and TV series and therefore will contain spoilers.
Dearest listeners, we are at the scene that is one of the banes of my existence and the object of all of my desires, the Hawkins Balloon scene. We will discuss Penelope versus Cressida and Penelope's special interests in grass and sparrows. Why did Colin keep choosing friends who openly mocked him? And just how would you choose to save someone that you care for? Also, listeners, we believe we have a small detail that indicates more time has passed than we have thought in the past. This is a Polin-heavy scene, so there is a lot to explore.
Welcome to your tangent, queens. Now we must make haste into today's episode. Okay, so
did we give up the spoiler first about the time passage of time?
So because as we are entering into the balloon scene, we have a bird's eye view of the entire event, including balloons, stalls, stalls that have foods and items for sale, and also a very, very intricate detail that Patty noticed that I paid attention to, but never thought about the implications of it. And I should have, because I've just been watching Gilmore Girls, and they literally have a celebration of it in the episode I watched the other day. I should have noticed. Take it away, Patty.
And obviously, like, I've had a crazy week at work, so I didn't have a chance to rewatch the scene until right before we were going to record. And I'm like, please let me pull out something that I haven't seen, because I haven't watched this scene in a long time. And I've literally been finding something now that I've had my little bit of a break. And as it swoops in, like, we have the aerial view, and then as it swoops in and you're going through the crowd, the camera pans past a maypole, and kids are running around playing, it's like, I don't know if it's a game or a dance. I did look it up, but the kids are running over and under the ribbons, like playing the maypole, and going through there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look up the maypole, because called May, the maypole. So I was wondering,
describe for those who may not know, because it's quite a specific thing. Describe for the listeners exactly what a maypole is before we go into the symbolism of them.
Okay, so the maypole is, when you're coming through the festival, it is the tall pole that has all of the ribbons hanging down from it. And the children some are going clockwise and some are going counterclockwise, and they are weaving some over, some under. And the way the maypole ceremony or game works is all of the ribbons intertwined. They're all different colors. They're supposed to represent the colors of the rainbow. But all of the colors entwine until the ribbons are covering the pole. And then
I think it's meant to go boy, girl, and I'm just looking at it, and I can see Nicholas, which is Nicholas Mondrick, is it? And his siblings are all doing it as well.
Yeah.
And then the other children, I do not know who they are, but I think it is meant to go boy, girl to represent the fertility part.
Yeah, because the pole itself does represent fertility. There's quite a few things. Okay, so first of all, it is an old Celtic tradition. It started around Scotland, which I think is why it's also important, because of Sir John being from Scotland. It's a, kind of a symbol from there. But it did, as time went on, it spread, and it was used in a lot of May Day festivals in Great Britain. So, but it originally was associated with Beltane, if I'm saying that correctly, which is the Celtic holiday in May that went from the eve of April 30th into the 1st of May. And it represented, like, they would walk all of their livestock and everything. They'd build these fires, and everybody had to walk through them, because as you walk through the smoke of these fires, it protected you for like the going into the new season and stuff like that. And it basically to honor their loved ones and to protect them from the fairies.
Okay.
And bad spirits. So for May Day, like you're supposed to, it's may you reflect and honor your loved ones. May the new season bring you growth, and may you always be protected in everything you do, which we know this season does bring growth for our two lead characters. And we do need protection in this episode because Penelope not quite nearly loses her life with that balloon. And I do say that sarcastically.
I believe you are about to receive brand new information.
Yes, because I skimmed through this the first time. So, let us start with the symbolism of the pole itself. Let me find where that went.
Penelope does enjoy her pole.
Well, the pole is phallic. We'll just say that.
Because the male is represented by the pole and the female is represented by the
pole. The disc that holds the disc that holds the ribbons is the feminine. So the two of them together represent fertility.
If the
and the ribbons are
like the fallopian tubes, like the rainbow. It reminds me of like the eggs released and the fallopian tubes capture it because everyone wants pretty ribbons to be described as fallopian.
Wow. So there are, because the traditional maypole moved across Great Britain and Europe, it was symbolized in many May Day holidays, usually falling on the 1st of May or the first Monday of May. Mm-hmm. So why that's important in this information I found is there are several origins of May celebrations throughout various cultures. We have a Roman festival called Floralia, which is usually held between the 27th of April and the 3rd of May. Roman goddess Flora, the goddess of flowers, vegetation, fertility, and spring, is who they're celebrating. And then
sounds very naturalist to me.
Then we have, I'm not even going to be able to pronounce this. Mayuma. This is celebrated every 3 years, and this is season 3. By the way, every 3 years, the Romans also
right, we're still Roman.
The Romans celebrated it, but it was named because it's celebrated in the month of May, Artemis, which is a month-long nocturnal dramatic festival.
Which we're
given
all
the
about.
Name orgies. Do we have orgies this season? Kind of. Which celebrate the mysteries of Dionysus and Aphrodite. She just keeps popping up.
And for those who don't know, Dionysus is actually very Benedict coded. So Dionysus, for those who don't know, is the god of love, sex, and agriculture, or wine, depending on who.
Let me read everything on here because it really does.
Okay.
Really does. Okay. Dionysus, being the god of grape harvest, winemaking and wine, fertility, orchards and fruit, vegetation, insanity, ritual madness, religious ecstasy, festivity, and theater.
Tell me that doesn't describe Benedict.
That's like very Benedict coded. And then Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, passion, and procreation.
Yes.
Hilarious.
So back storytelling time, back in high school, I had to come up with a product for public consumption. Like I had to create a product for selling, and I had to create labels, and I had to physically make this product. And so I chose to create a wine label and named it Dionysus, and I drew a picture of him and with the wine. And I actually did really well on that project.
Okay, so let me read this. Now remember, this is the start of the balloon festival. I almost wish if you want to cut this out and save it for side stories, maybe. But I have.
Sorry, folks, we took a brief intermittence as my mother called, and there will be no coffee for me today, and I'm out of milk. And unlike America, we can't just. I mean, I could order a coffee takeaway from McDonald's, but I'm not Uber Eatsing a coffee to my house because that sounds terrible. But in New Zealand, the only takeaway coffee that we have, like drive-through takeaway coffee, is McDonald's. Sad state of affairs.
Okay, so a little bit more on this
Yes, please.
myoma.
Myoma.
It's the one that's every 3 years, the one that's all about, orgies, and it's a month long.
Tell me about the orgies, Patty.
It was celebrated with splendorous banquets, and offerings and money was set aside by the government to provide torches, light, and other expenses to cover a 30-day festival of all-night revelry. However, this was later banned as it had a reputation for being particularly licentious and debauched.
Debauchery.
And I think it's interesting that this maypole symbolizes, is a symbol at this festival, which is the day Benedict meets Lady Tilly.
The importance of this. So when we look at our timeline that we have constructed so far, April 6th, we know that it is the Danbury Ball, because that is one of the cards that we can actually see, the dance cards on the ladies' arms. And then we've got proposing that somewhere either between May 1st, the first week of May, doesn't really matter, start of May, we have the maypole, which is the balloon event now. And then which episode was it that you were talking, Patty, about Mr. Dinkworth saying it was unseasonably chilly?
That's when they decide to do their ball. So it's like
episode 7 then.
The episode 7, yeah, they're talking about it. I'm trying to think. That's before the wedding, but
it's okay. And then we've got the
Dinkworth, and we assume that it occurs a few weeks after the wedding, I think.
Yeah.
The actual ball.
And then, well, it must, because the whole Cressida timeline, she only gives them a few weeks. She said up until the Dinkworth Finch ball to get it sorted. So that maybe a 2-week period. So we know that episode 7
and we know they have Francesca's wedding and everything, so it's got to be at least 2 weeks.
But there's like a big chunk of time in between here that they're pretending doesn't exist, but it does. So we know.
Well, it's like soap operas, I guess. You remember the old school soap operas where one day can last 6 months, but then all of a sudden it's 2 years later and the kids are teenagers now instead of little kids.
Yeah, my mum, I remember absolutely loathing a certain time of day when I would be off from school sick, because mum would make me watch Days of Our Lives and the Sick and the Restless, the
Young and the Restless.
The Young and the Restless. They were sick. And I remember just like hating it.
I was Young and the Restless for a while.
I was restless. I was restless having to watch this.
My grandma watched that one, and then I was undiagnosed PCOS, and I was having severe cramping and
that was why I was home.
Issues. Well, I was watching Young and the Restless. My grandma lived with us between my age of 7 and 11, 7 and 10. So I was watching Young and the Restless at a really young age. And then I switched in high school when I was missing a lot of school because of female issues that were undiagnosed PCOS and whatever. I switched to All My Children and General Hospital because my mom had watched General Hospital. But that's what I watched when I was homesick from school.
Yeah.
Was those two. But yeah, it's like, somebody has a baby and then like all of a sudden they're 4 and then all of a sudden they're 10 and then all of a sudden they're now a young adult and they're having romances, and you're like, man, a year ago they were a baby.
We're not started this episode yet.
Well, anyways, so we know the maypole means it's May 1st, basically. It's the first week of May now for this. So the whole proposal gets pushed off probably until mid to, if we're looking at the first 2.5 episodes are actually a month long.
June, July time?
I'm thinking proposal is June and
marriage
wedding
is
probably July, mid to
I'd say mid-July.
Because it's at least from proposal to marriage is at least 6 weeks because of her fainting and being out of society, recovering for at least a week or so.
Yeah. For those who question my timeline of Penelope, we're putting the math together. As we watch the episodes, we find the things that we need to find in order to construct this timeline. And we now
know that the sisters are not pregnant at this point. So, they're not, they are not pregnant until
wait, no.
The proposal, which is mid-June.
They very likely have I don't know how to word this, a swimmer connecting to the egg as we speak. They are probably in the process of becoming pregnant at this very
Well, they're in
time.
the process, but we don't find out they're pregnant until right before the proposal. In fact, the night
Yes.
of the proposal is when we find out about Prudence.
But
And Philippa
if
has
we
been
think about the
pregnant for at least
timeline,
like a week. Well, known pregnant. They've been pregnant. I mean, back then you
they
had to
didn't,
miss a cycle, and we
yeah,
talked about the timing of cycles. So they're probably anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks along at that point in
yeah,
July, which means they would have gotten pregnant in May at some point.
yeah,
And
minimum,
Penelope
minimum.
got pregnant in July.
Yeah.
The morning after the proposal, the mirror scene is when she.
So it's really interesting though that you talk about pregnancy and how the maypole represents fertility because, and I know that this is just a Penelope nervous habit, but Penelope
She's
walks
holding her
into this
belly
event,
when she
not
walks.
just holding, she's tapping her belly
Tapping it.
as a lot of pregnant women do when they're consciously aware of it. Like even if they haven't announced it, it's just something that you subconsciously, you always want to have your hand on your belly. You want to feel the baby. You want to like, it's almost like something that we do to like make it sink in for us and like that we want to naturally protect the space and those sorts of things. So that's what
Well, and I
Penelope's
think
doing in this
because
scene.
this is a May Day festival.
Yes.
We now know because the maypole is there, and she is seeking out Debling.
Yeah.
So she's probably thinking about that. Like,
Well,
this is May Day.
You say that she's seeking out Debling. So in last night's episode at the episode that we just recorded was at the Stowell house. She was wearing a lapis blue dress. I went through all the different shades of blue and it is specifically a lapis blue. What is she wearing today, Patty? It is 1000% Wedgwood blue, but oddly enough, they have Benedict wearing the same tone, and I think it was also Eloise, but not Colin. And
no, because Colin had to wear his pirate outfit because he's the hero.
But what I'm saying is it kind of is almost like Penelope is now ready. Penelope is ready to be married. Penelope is ready to settle down and do all those things. And Colin is missing the opportunity. Benedict is wearing the right colors. Eloise is all ready for Penelope to marry into this family. Not really, but you know, like color theory. Like they're all ready. And Benedict's like, brother, why are you still being a pirate over here? Penelope is ready. She is.
He does know because Colin's like, excuse me, and he's like, yes, and walks off. He's
immediately.
Like, I already see you clocking your girl, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So the Bridgertons,
and that her tapping of her belly in this scene actually, because I had made the comment that I think the morning of Francesca's wedding is when she found out she was pregnant.
I think so.
I think
suspected.
I think that Ray, probably said something to her at that point, like, "Hey, it's been a minute."
I do also wonder whether her passing out was not just an anxiety thing, but also your body goes through a lot of changes in that first month after you become pregnant. And I would say that was also why she was feeling really overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that
you have a huge surge of HCG in your blood. Yeah. In your blood. And it is really overwhelming actually, that first month.
And actually considering, what we know today compared to then, her body type compared to her sisters, she might have had something like a PCOS or insulin resistance or something like that. And when your hormones change, I just watched a thing, it was tying in ADHD, but because lucky me is getting, has been in perimenopause for how long, and I'm about to hit menopause at some point. So I'm watching that stuff because, as you do. And I'm, I recognize a lot of symptoms that I was having and my mother went through them. I remember her being diagnosed as having vertigo at my age and into her 50s. And it wasn't vertigo. A lot of women who are neurodivergent, they end up having dizzy spells. Like the content creator that I watched said that she like passed out, hit the floor, and struggled to get up. And it was just a dizzy spell, and it was part of her hormones change. So it's very believable that even within a week or 10 days, however long it took the engagement party to be planned, that Penelope would be having symptoms like that, especially with her anxiety the way it was.
Yeah. Well, and as Penelope enters, enters into this balloon festival.
The festival.
It's the May festival. Just call it the May balloon festival. She's definitely looking for someone, and initially I thought it was Debling, but I don't think it was because the second that she spots Colin, she immediately gives him that come hither. here.
It was a come hither. I saw it again. Like, it's not just a
It's
head nod. She does a little smile, like, let's
it
see if he
is.
comes a running.
Come running, my little puppy.
Yeah. And I want to point out a pattern I noticed too for the first time. The entrance into the festival. You have Prudence and Dankworth first, and they're kind of having a little sexual innuendo.
Yes.
Then you have Philippa
and the Queen. I thought she'd be bigger.
She was technically before them, so the pattern starts with them. Yeah. So they walk in, they say something. Philippa and Finch walk in, they say something to each other. Penelope and Portia wanders off. She says nothing to any. She just wanders off like Penelope doesn't even exist. Okay.
Yeah.
And then as the Bridgertons come in, even though they were behind, Gregory and Hyacinth walk forward. They say something, the balloonist aeronaut thing, they walk off. Penelope does her head nod. Benedict's talking. Colin's not listening. He says, excuse me. Benedict says yes. They walk off. So that's their 1-2 talk. And then Mama B and Eloise, who is oblivious, and Francesca, who's dealing with her own stuff, so she's oblivious, they all just wander off. So it's, conversation, like storyline, the party that's completely ignoring everything around them, and storyline, the parties that completely are ignoring everything around them. It was very much the families are mirroring each other. It shows you that they are mirroring each other in how they are handling this season almost. And these certain pieces fit together, but there is one. You think that Penelope is the odd piece out in her family, but really her mother is just like, she doesn't have to worry about her older daughters anymore. They have their husbands, but she's totally not focused on Penelope. And then you have Violet in the kind of opposite, where she is so focused on Eloise making other friends than Cressida, and Francesca finding her match, that she's completely oblivious to what's going on with Colin and Benedict and almost doesn't care. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting. Like, my little pattern seeking brain just was like,
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So Penelope gives Colin the come hither look, and he comes running. But before he does, he has to turn to his brother. Excuse me. Benedict doesn't even take a second glance. He is like, it's Penelope. I see what's going on here. He's like, Patty and I are in one mind that he 1000% at the very, very least suspected something was going on there, because he doesn't even question it.
There's a TikToker that zoomed in on his face at the end of season 1 at Daphne's ball, when he and Colin walk in, and then Colin spots Penelope and he says, excuse me. And the look, Benedict kind of turns back and looks at him, that little half smile. He's like, yeah, go get your girl.
Yeah, he knows. And I don't know whether they're
he knows. He knows.
I don't know whether they're trying to make him obtuse, just for Anthony's, whatever, or whether they're trying to make him seem like he doesn't know, but Luke Thompson knows that he knows, and so he's playing it that way, even if Jess Brownell's like, oh no, he doesn't know. I love that the actors give us what we need, even if it's not.
Remember, Colin says that Benedict cannot miss the spectacle. Benedict plays both ends against the middle. Yeah. He is the middle. He plays both ends. He knows all about Colin, but he pretends to Anthony that he doesn't, because when he gets the two of them in a room, he just sits back and watches. He creates a scene. He does not just sit back and watch. He says, are you going to duel your brother? He definitely lines it up. He stirs that part. That was his moment of support for Colin, though. Yeah. He had to make a joke in that moment because he wasn't sure if Anthony was mad or if Anthony was, cool. So he had to protect Colin in that moment, because normally Anthony is never Anthony comes down on Colin all the time. So Benedict was the buffer for Colin in that moment. And there's definitely two conversations happening, which we'll talk about that when we get to that episode. But I mean, he knows here. He knows. He's like, Colin's seen Penelope, and that darn little redhead, she tilted her head. Yeah. She's learning. Yeah. Yeah. He knows that she's got him wrapped around his little finger. So Penelope walks ahead and tells Colin to kind of like not keep his distance. She shouldn't say explicitly, but she says, can you please pretend to be looking for sweets so that no one thinks that we are together? Like, I am Penelope. He just goes, no, I am Penelope Featherington. I cannot be seen with you. Are below my stand. Yes, I know it's not how. Yeah, it's not intended, but I'm like,
Penelope.
Yeah. But he kind of takes it that way because
He
he's like,
does.
of course, of course.
I know you wouldn't want to be
Fine.
seen with a third son, like, let me distance myself, but not really, because I'm going to stand as inhumanly close to you without physically touching you as possible, because I need
Oh,
to
you're not
soak in your
wearing a
rays.
coat? Let me stand up against your back
Let
so that
let
my
me
coat keeps you warm.
let me radiate my hate into you.
Right. Like he is so close.
The
Like,
human
please.
radiator. He doesn't want her to
She's
catch a
like, keep.
cold, Penelope. Like he's a thoughtful gentleman. He doesn't want her to catch a chill. He's exuding his warmth onto her.
Well, and I found funny today, it gave me a little chuckle. If you look at the closed caption, when they're entering and other people are leaving, one of them says something like, kind of like derogatory, like dismissive. I can't remember what that is, but the next person is like, yeah, it's too sweet for me. And I'm like, it's pollen season and it's now too sweet because they've entered. So
What I like is that up until this point, he is somewhat keeping some distance between them. But when he starts asking her, so Penelope confesses to Colin, he asks, how are you doing? And she says, well, very well, in fact. Lord Dibling has shown an interest. And he says, well, it certainly seems that way at Stowell House. It was almost like an accusatory, like I noticed someone else
yeah.
noticing you. You are my girl. Know your place. Like it's definitely
He's like,
coded.
yeah, I noticed.
Yeah. And as he says that though, this is when he starts inching closer to her. And it's like the further away from him she seems, like the further out of his grasp, it's like the more emotional distance there is between them, the more physical closeness that he requires from her, because he needs to stay within her orbit.
I kind of see that, but it also like he was just as physically close for large portions of the market scene.
But that was
and he was
when
trying
they
to
were only just rectifying past the big fallout
the
that they'd had,
apology.
and he'd been away from her for so long, and that's what I'm saying. They'd been apart for so
Yeah.
long that he requires being close to her.
That's what I think. Like, because in the garden, like he had to hold her hand. He's got to take some of her light. He's got to bask in her light. And then the market scene, same thing. When he's anxiously attached. He's got an anxious attachment.
No.
So when he feels like there's a separation, he's got to move closer. Yeah. And he moves really close when he says, do you feel some attachment to him? Like he could seriously pick lint out of her hair. He is so close to her. He would notice if she had lint in her hair.
Yes.
Because he's so tall. Like, by the way, Pen, you got some lint up in your hair.
Maybe he can help Portia find those greys that she's been scouting for. Don't worry, Portia, I'll get it out for you. Can you imagine him plucking out a grey hair? I think she would fall over and die.
I would love it. Season 4, please. Breakfast scene.
I wish he's standing over and he goes, Portia, did you know that you have greys? Oh, the shade.
And then say something about his mother is accepting her grace graciously or something like that.
Yes. So
that would be so funny.
This is when we get our stereotypical Bridgerton moment. It all starts with...
Well, and I want to say too, like we talk often about all of the micro expressions of Luke Newton in his portrayal of Colin, and this sweet shop scene is, I'm going to say, because it's cupcakes and cake, I'm going to say baker's kiss, because from your lessons work and the intense fear, oh my God moment on his face, like that was not the plan. What are you talking about?
Well, and when he asks, do you have an affection? And she's talking about doubling, and then she goes, and he is not horrible to look upon or something. Colin scoffed. Like he does like a chuckle scoff.
Well, he looks up, he's like, well, he's smiling because if she looks, he wants to look supportive, but that is dripping with sarcasm. He's like,
yes.
Because you know what he's thinking. Is she really into blondes? I'm screwed. This doubling is completely different coloring.
What I love is that she at no point...
She said, not unpleasant to gaze upon.
But at no point does she say he is wealthy, he is titled. Mm-hmm. She doesn't say anything that would possibly make Colin feel inferior. And the one thing that she does comment upon is he is not unpleasant to gaze upon. When we all know our boy Colin, you could gaze at that boy all day long like he's the brightest star in the sky. Serious.
Well, she says he has a strength of character, or he appears
Yes.
to have a strength of character,
Appears.
and
Yes.
he's not unpleasant to gaze upon. And honestly, if you look at how Colin views himself,
Yes.
those are his two traits. And if she's finding them in someone else,
it's what she's searching for. She's searching
so
for
now,
Colin's traits in others.
And I think that is why it's so important that when he asks about Debling to the Lord Squad, and they say, with the money that he has and all of that,
yes.
Then he starts seeing, well, if all things are equal, we both have a strength of character. We both are not unpleasant to gaze upon because, I'm a Bridgerton and we're all, Lady Whistledown even said, we are all beautiful children. What does he have compared? Like, he's now officially starting to compare himself, and that is his downfall. And that's really when he starts to just
spiral.
Disintegrate. Yeah, he starts to spiral because, and that's every human, when you compare, instead of comparing against yourself, when you're comparing yourself against others, you're going to find things that are less than someone else. And this is the moment that he starts wondering, okay, I'm not all that special. Somebody else has a strength of character. Somebody else is cute. What can he offer her that I cannot? And yes, he's a Bridgerton and he's wealthy, but it's a trust fund.
But
he has no control over it.
He can offer her that no one else can. Aside from him, he can offer her family. And that is the thing that she, I think, craves more than anything else is family and
acceptance. But Colin
has
no idea.
Yeah.
Colin has no idea about his family at this point.
Yeah.
I don't even think Penelope truly understands that yet at this point.
And it takes, Cressida and Penelope both kind of opening Eloise and Colin's eyes to realize that not all families are created equal and that not everyone has the support of a family. Not everyone has a love of a family. Not everyone has that to fall back upon for, even though they make him feel some sort of way, they will always support. At the same time, I don't think there would ever be a time in which Portia would step away from her kids and let them fall on their ass.
No.
Emotionally, yes, but not like she would never let anything untowards ever happen to them.
She made a choice and she had to survive. In survival, we have to eliminate, especially women, we have to eliminate a lot of our softness. We have to put on our armor and we have to be a little bit more rigid and a little bit more. She could not appear vulnerable and showing love, showing affection. She viewed it as too vulnerable. She had to choose. She had to be the man of the house.
Yeah.
So she made choices, and those choices were ones that she had to make because when you're in survival, it's really difficult to make any choice that is 100% working for everybody in the household. Speaking from experience. But ultimately, what makes her, yes, she was a narcissistic mama, but what makes her different is the fact that she is able to recognize that and take accountability for it eventually and grow and try and change herself for her kids once she realizes how her choices have affected them.
Yeah.
So back to the sweet shop.
Back to the sweet
We're
shop.
At the cake.
I need to, you know what? I actually like thinking about Portia and Penelope's relationship just makes me sad and hurt for her, like really like genuinely sad and hurt. And I really do want to dig into both individual character analysis about them both, but also as specifically as a mum, because we can be mums and we are still people. We still have our individual stuff going on. So I think we're going to have to do mults of that. And I think I actually think that once we clock finish episode 4, we might do an intermittence before we do episodes 5 to 8. So kind of split season like Netflix, and start digging into some of those episodes.
Well, we're also doing it because we're procrastinators, and 5 through 8 was way more difficult to watch than 1 through 4.
I have watched 1 through 4 probably 1,000 times, and I've watched 5 through 8 probably only 1 to 2 dozen times. Like, it's a dramatic difference because 1 through 4 is happiness and romance and new
Hmm.
beginnings and unsurety, whereas 5 through 8 is just a lot of angst, and a lot of hurt feelings, and a lot of processing, and it hurts.
I watched 5 through 8 probably equally to
We're not
1 through 4.
dopamine seekers at all. We're not just looking for the happy without the bad.
Yeah, I watch 5 through 8 a lot, and I think the reason is because the kind of life, the things I've been going through this summer while doing the podcast, while watching this season, have been very similar, and I've really related to Colin. So I wanted to find the things that redeemed him because so many people were just looking at him as angry Colin, and I don't see him being angry beyond her taking
Hurt. I
accountability.
think he's hurt.
Yeah,
Hurt than
he's
anything.
hurt. He's also insecure. I honestly think, and you brought it up actually just now and made me think about it. And us talking about him comparing himself to Debling, and you said the thing that he can give her that Debling cannot is family.
Mm.
And the moment he realizes this is not before the wedding. It's not the night of the wedding. It's not the day of the wedding. It's not even when they're all standing in front of the queen in solidarity as Bridgertons. And he says, "Hey,
I think
Penelope,
it's
you're a Bridgerton now."
the Dankworth
It's in that.
Dankworth Finch.
No,
No?
it's in the study when she tells him, "You are enough as you are." What is the
Mm.
first thing she says? This family that
Yeah.
you have been so kind to share with me.
Yeah.
In that whole conversation, he realizes that he is the best husband for her. And that is why he can
Oh,
admit that he wants to hold her and kiss her and all those things, and admit that he wants to do those things because he realizes in that moment he is the better of the two men for her because he can give her something Debling could not.
well, and let's talk about, because we're about to get up to that once we get to the past cup, is he does question more her, not in her intentions, but so let's talk about the cupcake scene first. Penelope just has, well, let's say Nicola Coughlin, she just has this sweet, very soft, very gentle, that peaches and cream kind of complexion. She's very beautiful. And so when
she's gorgeous in this scene. I love her hair. I love the
yes,
little bobble things in her hair.
yes,
If I ever was getting married again, which I highly doubt, if I ever got married again, I would want my hair like that. Her hair is very much like wedding hair.
it is.
It's gorgeous.
If they had
Like
the
I
hair for
can't
the
believe,
wedding, yeah.
like I almost think that this coming year, like homecomings and stuff, I didn't look at a lot of homecoming pictures, but I could see girls wanting to put their hair up like that for a homecoming, or if it came out
The
before
pearls.
prom, it came out after prom. Like if it came out before prom, I think a lot of girls would have done their hair like that for prom. Her hair was gorgeous in that scene. I loved her hair.
Well, and the pearls match the necklace, which matches the earrings, which matches
Mhm.
the softness of her makeup in this style. It is very soft, gentle, romantic, sweet.
Yeah, she's very much dressed up, kind of, again, like how dressed up she was for her wallowing era in How Bright the Moon. This is her damsel in distress era because this is all very much fairy tale, like
The
kind of
pearl,
princess vibe.
the pearl represents the journey of the soul or spirit along the path to perfection, and it also
She's moving towards self betterment. So
it symbolizes purity, wisdom, and resilience, love, protection, and elegance. And what do pearls symbolize in a woman? A pearl is a symbol of woman's strength and empowerment. Okay, I'm going to change my thing from Penelope being an emerald, Penelope pearl, because strength and empowerment is very much what her season is about.
oh, and it ties into Pride and Prejudice because in 2005, when she's like, "You can say my pearl for Sundays."
And white pearls symbolize, which is what she's wearing here on her necklace and her earrings, but the ones in her hair are more of that,
Like the different blues.
yeah, the more iridescent kind of, but the white pearls, innocence, beauty, sincerity, and new beginnings. And I think in the scene, both of them are being very sincere with each other. And I love that. Even, I mean, I don't know how much of this is intentional, but I mean, when you listen to the behind the scenes footage, so much of it is. So it's really hard to tell what is just placed there because it looks good and how much is intentional. But I'm going to pretend like because I love the symbolism of everything.
In the world of creation and the world of collaboration, everything matters because your artists that do the costuming are taking the ideas of the scene, the ideas from the words, the ideas from the director, and they are putting that into the clothing for the scene.
Yeah.
The reason, like we were talking about how
Is it?
Penelope is very much in Bridgerton blue. So is Eloise. So is Benedict. It's like they're welcoming her in. Benedict knows. Eloise is recognizing that Penelope is very much serious about finding a husband, and that's kind of why she's wearing that color, right? Colin is very out of place, but there's a reason he is, because he's coming into himself, and we've said he wants to be more than just a Bridgerton, just another Bridgerton. He wants to be his own man. This is why he looks different in this scene. This is why his clothing is different. Everything is intentional.
There's a pattern on her dress, and I can't tell if it's like a dandelion or like a sun kind of rays in the blue.
Yeah, it's probably a sky thing because of the balloon. Because all of the sleeves being puffed is a design of the ballooning, the aeronaut era.
Aeronaut
so
era. A balloon.
But what I love,
have you ballooned
what,
before?
what I love about the cupcake scene, the pastry scene, is that it is a mirror from season 1. Yes. When she follows him out, when she wants to tell him about Marina, and she says his name, and he turns around and she's like, there's something I've been meaning to tell you, but we've always been in company. And he's like, is there something on my face?
Yes.
Has it been there all evening?
Yes.
So it's legit. They both, I almost think she does it as kind of a dig, because I think she caught him staring.
Something, yeah.
But in his, like, he knew that she was serious in the moment and upset, and he doesn't like her upset, so he made a joking quip to kind of lighten the mood, as he does. But it totally comes back full circle and smacks him in the face here, where, she's licking her lips and he's just stopped in his tracks, and she's like, at
this point I have
sugar on my face.
At this point he's been dreaming of her, and so he knows what those lips can do. He's been thinking about them. I think every waking moment he's been thinking about those lips on his. And so to see her eating, and this scene for me ties into the Romancing Mr. Bridgerton book, because we have her eating the eclair, and I think it reminds me of that scene from the book. And we know that eating in Bridgerton, there's a fascination with the mouth and the lips, and we have in season 1,
but nobody does it like him. Daphne stares.
It starts with cake.
His mama stares. Yeah, but nobody stares like Colin.
It starts with cake. We have the Duke licking the ice cream off a spoon, and Daphne being completely just mesmerized by it. We have Violet with Lord Anderson. We have now Benedict. No, not Benedict. We have Colin with the cupcake with the sugar. And I think they just like themselves a treat. And Penelope is a sweet treat.
They have a mouth fixation.
They do. I think someone in the Bridgerton team has a bit of a mouth fixation, if I'm just being honest. Colin, you are here.
There is something about the way somebody moves their mouth when they eat, a cake or something sweet is almost different, because they're savoring it, than when you're eating something savory and they're calling that out. Like when somebody eats a cupcake, they usually do take a little bit of the frosting first and lick it before they bite into the cupcake, or they might lick all of the frosting off before eating the cake part. I've seen people do that. Or like eating ice cream, like there's no way to eat it without completely and rapturously enjoying it, but you're not necessarily doing that with, say, a meatloaf.
Yes. Well, I mean,
so
yuck. Meatloaf is one of the most repulsive sounding.
I'm Midwestern. I am Midwestern, and I make a good meatloaf. So, but I'm not sitting there going, love me some meatloaf.
I love that.
But yeah, I love that.
I love that when Penelope asks, when she says, "Do I have something on my face?" He has to then lick his lips before he can even respond.
And he has to pause because he's like,
I need to compose myself.
I'm busted. And he goes, no, you removed it. It was there. Like, he's implying it was there. It was there. That's what I was staring
Who's the narcissistic gaslighter now, Colin?
It was there. You removed it. You're good. You're good. It's gone now. But I also love, like, when she says
she has to ask him to wish her luck, because he just doesn't have, like, it's not that he doesn't have it in him. It's something he wants for himself so much, and he has to, like, he's desperately trying to let it go. And when he does say, I wish you well, I want you to be happy, like, he needs to check in every time that she is marrying Devlin, because she feels there can be some affection between them, that there is something. And he's like, if you don't have the affection that we hold between us, the friendship that we hold between us, he's a little bit like his mum, that if the love doesn't look like what it does between us, then it is not worthy, because what we have between us is so crushingly overwhelmingly encompassing. It is everything. So if it is not like that, if it is not what I feel for you, if you do not feel that for him, then you shouldn't be marrying him. But never going to be able to give you the happiness that I can with how I feel about you. I feel like that's what's going on in his mind at the.
Well, and I was focusing on the good luck too when we both started talking, because yes, she has to say wish me luck, but I also think in that moment, I think Penelope has started to come into a little bit of her power regarding Colin, because after the kiss and she kind of let him go under the tree, she feels more free to kind of flirt and to, like, she's pulling a Daphne from season 1, really, with the prince. Like, she's like, look at me going after Lord Devling, look at, like, oh, and the dig about he's not unpleasant to gaze upon. Like, she's trying to, if he's gonna be jealous, I'm gonna make him as jealous as possible, because then she keeps looking for him the whole time she's with Devling. She keeps looking like, is he gonna
Let me
declare
preface
himself
this
as.
by saying we don't think that she knows that Colin has any feelings for her at this point. Well, I think maybe she does on some like very minuscule level, but she has such low self-esteem that she tells herself it could never be true, it could never be real, there could never be
I
anything
don't think
between
she
them.
believes he has feelings for her.
Yeah,
I think at this point it's a mind game she's playing with
with herself.
herself.
Yes.
That if he does, then her talking about Debling being attractive, talking about and possibly entering into a relationship / getting proposed, whatever she's doing. Eventually, if he loves her, if he has any kind of feelings, he will feel jealousy, he will feel all the things, and he will stop it. She knows Colin will not let her be with somebody, and yes, she says, I never thought you'd deny me a marriage, because she never expected to get that far. She thought he would stop. If he was going to, he would stop it before then.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think she felt like. I do think she was playing Daphne a little bit. I think she watched Daphne a lot in season 1, and she was using a lot of those same feminine wiles, because she wasn't worried about how people perceived it anymore. She wasn't worried about how Colin perceived her. She was playing that game with herself, like,
yeah,
I'm going to pursue this thing with Debling, but I am going to keep bringing it up to him. I'm going to distance myself from him, but I'm going to keep bringing this up. And if he is jealous, if he does have feelings for me, he will declare himself. He will not let me marry someone else, because she's romantic, and that happens in love stories. We see in Gregory's love story, he freaking breaks up a wedding. So
no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He breaks it up, and she still marries him, and then he has to get the marriage annulled.
Yes, but he interrupts a wedding.
Yeah.
He
doesn't
waited
break it
till
up
the
though.
last minute.
He doesn't break it up though. But anyway, let's go back to.
I didn't say break up a marriage. I said a
You
wedding.
said break up a wedding, but he didn't break it up because it stayed together. Interrupt. Words matter, Patty.
He broke up the wedding. He didn't stop the marriage.
So let's talk about Debling. So Penelope.
Well, I want my last thing about the good luck for me, because we kind of tangented, so I missed this part. For me, Colin's good luck was so sincere.
Yeah.
And probably the softest spoken. You could hear the melancholy. But for me, that good luck said he loved her more than pulling on that rope, said he loved her more than running after a carriage. Because if this is what she wanted, it's kind of like when he let her walk out from under the tree. He was letting her go. If this is what she wanted, like, he was letting her go and pursue that, because he wanted her to be happy. Well, that good luck to me was more of an I love you than the big grand gestures.
As Alan Rickman in Sense and Sensibility, if that's what's going to make her happy, I will step aside and allow it. Even if I love her, I will step aside.
Yeah.
So he steps aside, and Penelope goes in search of Debling. She finds him only for people or something to move out of the way, and she realizes too late that he is not standing there alone, and that he's actually standing there with Cressida and Eloise, and they are engaged. She tries to abort the mission, too late, and Debling calls her over to join the party and make it a party of 4. Much to Eloise's absolute delight. She is so ecstatic.
Yeah, it's such a faux pas on his part.
And he knows it too. He knows it.
I think he's purposely pitting the two of those ladies together.
And then he
against
uses
each other.
He then uses the excuse of, oh well, I'm going away for years at a
Mhm.
time, so you wouldn't deny me the company while I have it. But what I think is the underlining message of what he is saying here is I have weeks before I go away for years at a time. I need
So
to
you
pick my
have to
wife.
forgive me my
I need to
vices.
pick my wife before then. So I need to double date both of you in a speed dating setting and pit you against each other to find the best woman for the marriage, for the duty.
Or in
Um,
Patty Cannon, this is all about me. So you
yes.
have to forgive me
Yeah.
because we're going to do this my way
Yeah,
because
but
I'm a narcissist.
I mean, I'm not on the same train as you are when dabbling is concerned, but this moment is very much I know that this is going to make both you women uncomfortable. I know that Cressida has been cruel to you in the past, but I have limited time, so I'm just going to date both of you at the same time in front of each other, and you're just going to have to get on.
Well, and I also think he's kind of science minded, being a conservationist. So I think he is enjoying the analytical side of pitting these two ladies together and seeing how far they will go and what they will
I
do. Like,
actually
I think
think
he's
he's got
coming at it like it's a game.
I think as many science-minded people, I think he has wait, no, let me
I think he
rephrase that.
finds it very interesting.
I think there are certain people out there, like my husband, who have a crazy, amazing analytical mind for science, for engineering, for that side of things, but that they are so singularly focused that maybe their people skills aren't as on par as they should be. And so they do happen upon faux pas more often than they probably should. I don't think that Debling's people skills are that strong. He says, if I only ever talked about nature, my dinner party invitations would cease to exist. But no one seems to
He
actually
still only
know
talks
him.
about, yeah.
No one seems to actually know him. So I think his dinner party invitations have ceased to exist. I think the only people that are inviting him to dinner parties are those who are trying to marry off their daughter to the most eligible Lord, not
They're inviting,
Winston.
yeah,
They're
they're inviting all
inviting
the
Lord
richest
Deb
men, all the titled
they're
men. Yeah.
inviting Lord Debling, not what is his name? Is it Adolf? Adolf Debling?
I don't know.
I feel like it's Adolf because it's Hitler. And I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Well, I think he's looking at it like kind of like when you think about Mean Girls and how Katie was in Africa for so long with her parents, and
Alfred,
she
sorry,
equates
Alfred.
Alfred.
I was close.
She
Adolf.
equates all of the teenage behaviors to the animal kingdom. I see Debling doing that. I think like he is watching, like say two peacocks,
Yeah,
male peacocks, like
yeah.
vying for the attention of the female. That's how he's viewing this, and he finds it very interesting, and he wants to see how far it'll go before one of them cracks.
Yeah. So
And I think he has a favorite. I think his favorite is Penelope. I think ultimately, because he's not
yeah,
looking for love, Penelope fits the bill because she's intelligent, she's witty, she's quick-witted. She's very quick on the uptake. Her brain works very fast, and she is also analytical. And I think he wants somebody that will stand up to his family, and he doesn't, but also placate his family.
yeah.
So he's looking at Portia kind of like analyzing that whole situation and kind of going, well, most men assume women become their mother, right? So
Yeah.
he's come into this very analyzing it very scientifically to determine who he wants to take for a wife.
Well,
But he's playing a little bit like
yeah.
I'm
And
watching two birds
you
fight
can
over.
see Debling, and I think Cressida very much knows that Debling has an interest in Penelope, and
Mhm.
she becomes quite aware of that, and that's when she pulls out her ace in the bag and she asks Eloise, "Hey Eloise, what was that cake? What was that cake in the mind? I'm looking at my notes. What was that bird I was telling you I love? Like, oh, that one that I know all about, but I have to ask you what it is. Like,
I adore it. She's like, what was that bird I was telling you I adore? I adore this bird, but I can't remember the name.
I can't remember the name. I can't remember anything about it. I didn't know that it's flightless.
But Eloise answers her all embarrassed and then looks at Penelope like, forgive me, I
You
have
can
to do
tell
this.
she did not want to answer. Like, I think although she knows that even though she's still mad at Penelope, I think that she is actually vying for Penelope and Lord Debling to be together because she still wants her friend to be happy. And she thinks that Lord Debling would be a suitable match for him. If she was going to have to marry anyone, why not it be someone who's going to go away for the rest of his life and Penelope's never going to have to deal with him? That's Eloise's idea of a perfect match because she doesn't think that Penelope's out there looking for love because she's obtuse.
No, she knows that she believes Penelope's just trying to get out of her house.
Yeah, and so she's thinking, okay, well, actually, Lord Dibbling is a good match for my friend, and I think that she actually is for the match, and that's why she says,
I
is
think,
that not in fact the man that Penelope was talking with all last night?
yeah,
And Penelope's not
I
as
think
harmless as she
she
looks.
cannot. I think she cannot think beyond Penelope and Cressida. This is her
Yeah,
version of hell.
yeah,
She is with the two people. It's like your old bestie, your new bestie. You don't want old bestie seeing you support new
but
bestie, but you don't want new bestie seeing you support old bestie. It's almost like she has been dating two men, and
yeah.
they show up at the same dance, and
You
it's
can still
that
see that
awkward for her.
that the main loyalty is to
Yes.
Penelope because Penelope knows her better. And you can tell that she doesn't want to be betraying Penelope's loyalty right now, but she doesn't feel like she has a choice because she's still mad at her and she can't publicly be seen supporting her. But I think if they weren't in a fight, like she would be the one championing for Penelope to marry Devlin.
I don't know if I think she's shipping them because of her loyalty to Penelope. I think that she believes Cressida is delusional because
She is.
Lord Debling is smart. Lord Debling is singularly focused. Lord Debling, and she knows that Penelope fits the bill more because she
Yeah,
knows Penelope is
yeah,
smart. She knows Penelope also has her singular interests, and they're
yeah.
on paper they're more suitably matched. And Cressida
Well, because
is not playing this game the
when
same.
she
Like she doesn't know
finds
how to play this game.
when she finds out that Colin and Penelope are engaged, one of the very first things she says is, he is not Lord Debling. He is not going to be gone for years at a time. He is going to find out. Like she
Yep,
immediately compares him to Lord Debling, as in, Lord Debling was a good choice for you. Why did you not pick him?
she brought up Lord Debling because she thought that Penelope was going into marriage much
Yeah,
like she believes she would, which
yeah,
is analytically, which
yeah,
is if I have to do this, I'm
yeah,
going to find a person that is still going to let me have my interests, still going to let me be who I am.
yeah.
And so she thought that Penelope was choosing someone purposely who was going to be gone so she could remain Lady
Yeah.
Whistledown undiscovered.
Yeah. And then we've got Eloise. Like she answers, it's the Great Orc, and then Cressida takes the lead in the race that is to Debling's, I'm not gonna say heart, but I'll say fortune, hand in marriage, whatever you want to preface that with.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst they are bonding away, oh, they made for life. Isn't that sweet? And Eloise looks like she is ready to have a panic attack. She is like, don't look at me. I'm fanning myself. I'm overwhelmed. It's too much. I don't want to be here. I don't want anyone to be getting married. I don't think anyone ever should be married, let alone two people be fighting over a man. Like this is her idea of
And it's
hell,
to
and I think
her
it's
two like
hilarious.
best friends. Like she's
Yeah.
so stuck in that moment.
Yeah.
She's like in purgatory and she's fanning herself like she did at her going
But
into her debut. Like
it's
this is
it's
her version of hell.
it's not even that like absolutely, like this scene gives me so much. It gives me the most cringiest secondhand embarrassment, whilst
Mm-hmm.
also that kind of laughter that like I'm so embarrassed for you, but it's also adorably hilarious. And I think that just sums up Nicola, like Coughlin's whole
And what's
joking kind of vibe. Is so Debling and Cressida are talking about the Great Orc, and Penelope's over here like, I love birds.
yeah,
And one must not
most
overlook
common are the most beautiful.
the common sparrow. And he's like, no, one should not. Like, where
Like
are you
he's
going
embarrassed
with?
for her. Yeah.
It's so awkward. I like grass. What exactly about grass is it that you like? It's just so
Green.
green.
And
This
and
is
what I
such
love about
this is the moment where I realized that she is 1000% sisters with Philippa.
well, and this is what this scene gives me two things that I absolutely love in my heart. One, Colin's perspective from where he is watching the back of Penelope. If you watch Penelope's face through this whole thing, she looks like she smelled a fart. Her face, she is so mad. She
Yes.
is so upset at how it's going.
Yeah.
And then she is so visibly embarrassed. And I think that if Colin had seen her, like if she'd have been standing where Cressida was and he saw what she was going through, he would realize Debling is not exactly the competition he thought he
No.
was because she is completely miserable and not necessarily miserable because to me, Penelope comes off as like, why am I trying why am I trying so hard for this guy almost? Like she almost wants Cressida to just have him, but she's gotta beat Cressida. Does that make sense? Like it's not
Yeah.
about doubling anymore. It's
Yeah.
all about Cressida. And I think if Colin would have been a switch perspective and not be watching Penelope from the back, I think he would have had a different perspective, but he's so pining and jealous and protective in that moment because
only
he's not
through a
seeing
certain
her face.
filter.
Yeah, because he's only seeing it from a certain perspective. But also, like Penelope in that moment, this shows us exactly why her and Colin are the perfect match because they both on the spot struggle. This is her exact visual depiction of my words like get caught between my heart and my mouth. Like what I want to say, how I want to present myself gets glitched. I glitch, and she's absolutely glitching here. She wants to sound as well spoken as Cressida. She wants to come off flirtatious like Cressida. She wants to beat Cressida, but she's struggling so much, and she just feels like she's failing. And not only is she failing with the man present, her greatest foe is present. And her former best friend that she just wants to show, like, I'm doing so well without you, but she's not. And she's just, it's just such a beautiful, like, Nicola, I want her to be a college age Bridget Jones so bad because she's so good at the awkward funny.
Yes. And then the camera kind of pans over to Colin eating cupcake. And that's how we know that he has only got one thing on the mind. He's eating the cupcake, but apparently
eyes
some
closed and everything.
Oh, he is like reminiscing on that cupcake, the feel of it on his lips, thinking about that cupcake on her lips. The eyes are closed. He's thinking about that. Like he is down bad. He is so down bad. And at that point, this is where Lord Stanton and Wilding, they are very much the fiefs of the season, more so Wilding. We don't stand a Wilding at all. In a world full of Wilding, be an Albion. And they're kind of immediately mocking and questioning, why were you helping Penelope find a husband? And he says, well, I'm all done with that. I'm all done with that. It's good to be back. As in, I've put my armor back on. He's returning to his vapid, charming shadow self ways because he's just talked to Penelope. He is sure that Lord Devling is very much what she wants and what she's going after. And he thinks, okay, this is me out of the race. I need to go on with my life and I need to go back to what was working for me. And I mean, it wasn't working for him, but he thinks it was. And I think the next scene, we're not going to talk about it right now, but I think the next scene of him at the den of females very much proves that he cannot return to that life now that he's had a taste of Penelope. And I think it was just him coming to terms with the fact that there is no other choice out there for him. Like either he tries with her, he really puts it all out on the line, or not at all. Like there was never any.
Right. And like I said in the intro, this particular interaction with the Lord Squad bothers me so much because what Wilding said isn't mocking. I should have guessed you'd be here because you are, you know,
like the fanciful.
You're so interested in the whatever of man, self-improvement kind of thing, which Colin is. He's always out there looking for his purpose. And then Stanton says, yeah, you've always been into the fanciful. He could have ended it there, but he had to get the dig in about Marriage Whisperer because, he's got to bring the Bridgertons down a peg. And I mean, Colin gets out of it like, oh, I'm done with all that. I'm back, because in the moment he's like really scrambling and struggling because he's watching Penelope possibly move forward with another man. And he's in self-preservation mode. But goodness gracious, if I would have been able to let that comment slide.
I should have known we would have found you here marveling at men's ingenuity.
Okay, love the fanciful. That's not mocking, really. Fanciful's not mocking, really. But the line about the Marriage Whisperer.
Is that what inspired you to take up occupation of Marriage Whisperer? Somehow ingenuity? You've got to be a genius in order to be a Marriage Whisperer. You've got to be able to...
Or the fanciful.
You've got to be able to do the impossible, like fly a balloon in order to get Penelope married off to another human being?
Yeah.
Comparing
and telling
to
him he's
great feat.
Yeah, he's living in the fanciful. You like the fanciful. That is another way, like how Marina said, Colin just lives in his fantasies.
Yeah.
And it was so mocking,
Yeah.
publicly mocking, mind you. They're
Yeah.
out in public. There's people listening. I'd have been like, that's when I
Excuse me,
would have
sir.
pushed through the wall of the Lord Squad. I'd be like, I'm going to go find my brother. I can't even stand you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out of here. Like, I don't
But
understand from that moment
they seem
on,
to have more of
everything
a
else.
relationship than what I initially thought, because the fact that they said, we should have known to find you here, you do enjoy the fanciful, as in to say they have been around him enough to know his likes and dislikes and who he is as a person.
Well, yeah, they know that about him. Colin is somebody that's always had flights of fancy, and he has a big imagination. I mean, he is Lord Ledger's grandson, and Lord Ledger like loves seeing what is there and what isn't there. He likes using his imagination. But in the past, when it's been a large group of men together, more of the Lord Squad together,
Yeah.
it's almost seemed like that normal, like locker room ribbing that men do with each other and boys do with each other, especially teenage boys when you hear them talk and they're always talking smack to each other. I spent my whole freshman year of college pretty much on an all boys dorm floor, where everybody I hung out with was mostly guys.
Mhm.
And it really was like you're just ribbing on everyone
Yeah.
all the time, and so in a larger crowd it felt like that, but when you're in a smaller group of people, like 2 to 3 people, it really felt like an attack. It was the two of them against him, and how he didn't realize that in the moment, and he kept seeking them out and hanging out with them. Like, well, those are not your people.
No, and well, actually, they sought him out. He was standing there, and they approached him. But
well, I mean, like we see him later at that library thing.
So this is where Colin brings up, I mean, it pans back, but we've already talked about, we will in our side stories dig more into the Eloise Cressida dabbling side of things, but we're down Struggle Street to probably keep this episode under like the 2 hour mark. Hopefully I can edit it down to an hour and a half, but we don't want our poor listeners listening to us for 2 hours straight because they'll be exhausted by the tangent. So let's talk about Lord Dabbling and the Lord Squad and what they have to say about him. Colin says, what do you know about Lord Dibbling? And they said, what I find interesting is that Wilding says there is nothing untoward about him aside from his untoward love of bitch. One, I don't really trust what Wilding's definition of untoward is, because we already know that him and his friends have less than stellar moral characteristics. So I'm not really going to take his opinion to heart. But he seems kind of genuinely thinking it through here. Like, no, Dibbling's a pretty good guy. Mm-hmm. Like, he's eccentric for sure, but he can afford to be because of his fortune.
He says the word singular. Like, he has singular notion, but he can be singular because of his fortune. Like, he makes enough money that nobody's going to give a crap that he's odd.
What confuses me though is, so the whole point of being a lord is obviously you've got to be in court over the December-January time where they're passing all the notions for the year, but he's going away for 3 years. So
you should be, and he can have a proxy.
Okay, but you can't really.
He can assign a proxy. It can't be Penelope.
No.
Cannot be a woman, but he could assign a proxy. But there's a lot of I don't know if you've ever seen Poldark. Poldark, first of all, you like Lord of the Rings, right? Well, I mean, he was from The Hobbit.
Antonio Brumaletti, what are you up to, Ant?
Is it Keely? Goodness. It's Keely and Feely, right?
Well,
from The Hobbit.
Antonia, Colin, Luke Newton's partner, seems to be on holidays, maybe back in Greece again. It looks like Greece, but I'm not entirely sure. But Luke Newton, like, I spying.
Yeah, but that light could just be like, have fun.
Yeah, I'm definitely not stalking all of the Bridgerton cast on Facebook. Not Facebook, Instagram. Instagram, talk. I've got them all. I get the updates
from The Hobbit. It was Keely and Feely, right? Like when you're saying the dwarf brother names or whatever in a row. Anyways, Keely, the guy that plays Keely, and I can't think of his name right now. I should just IMDb it and look it up. It plays Poldark, and that's the whole reason I watched it. And what's her name? Who plays and that's almost like a Benedict coded. And it's based on a book series or whatever, but she comes to him to be like a housekeeper.
Well, I'm distracted because I was just watching the balloon scene.
Aidan Turner and Eleanor Tomlinson is who's in it. But he technically is a titled person, but he's kind of fallen from grace because he went and fought in the Americas, and he comes back and there was a situation. He was in love with a woman. He left. People thought he had died. So the love of his life ends up marrying this other person. He comes home to find her married. He ends up taking this girl in whose family is poor and starving. They end up falling in love and getting married. But he is a landowner, and I think he's titled. He's at least a landowner, and he's supposed to go to deal with Parliament and stuff, and he doesn't. And it's not until like second season or something like that where he starts going simply to thwart the guy that ended up marrying the previous love of his life, his first love. He's a little smarmy dude, and he starts, they kind of become rivals, and especially political rivals. But yeah, he completely, like, he went off and fought in a war and completely avoided his responsibility to the political aspect of being a landowner. So it can be done.
Okay, well, let's talk about the balloon scene now, because as a female, certainly makes you feel some things, and it's not pulling on the rope. It is the absolute authority in which Colin presents himself with in this moment. Like, I think a lot of the lords, they're so used to like just having their voices heard in Parliament, women or whatever, but they're not what we would stereotypically call manly men. Look at Mr. Mr. Dankworth for as example, like very into his appearance, like must be well kept, must be looking.
He's a dandy.
He's a dandy. But a lot of those guys are not your typical men's men. And in this moment, this scene gives me the same vibes as Lie Down, when he's running up to the balloon and he yells at the man, "Come and help me." It was not a request. It was a demand.
It was a help me now.
Now, yes. You will do what I say, and you will do it post haste. I was like,
what's funny is everybody comes running. Everybody comes running. And his brother, which you would think his brother would hear him yell, "Help me now," and knowing how the family is, would be the first one on scene. No, he's last to run up. So everybody else, like, he commanded all of those other young men to, like, they heard his voice and they came a running.
He says, "Help me now," and the first one to get there is Wilding, and then Stanton, and then Will, followed by Benedict.
Right. Benedict was last.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting is Colin is watching. He is so protective of Penelope. He is so observant of everything. He is literally the only person that realizes this could hurt her.
And you know what? His sister was also standing there. He does not give two flies about that. He is like, "My Penelope, my Penelope, my Penelope." Eloise, who? Who cares about Eloise? I just care about Penelope.
Well, and for me, this scene is, and that's why I asked it in the intro, how would you choose to protect a person you cared about in a moment of danger?
Yeah.
Because we have a direct comparison between Colin, who loves her truly, and Debling, who, in my opinion, is
he ran, and he didn't even
look at her.
Did not check. Really Lord-like. And even Eloise, I was really, really surprised by Eloise in this moment, that she just bolted and didn't think twice about Penelope either. Which, knowing what Eloise is like, I don't think that's in her character.
I don't think Eloise thought I think Eloise thought that Penelope would clock the situation like she did, because she is intelligent, and she would have ran too. Eloise is not taking in the variable of turning around.
Penelope's a little bit more of a deer in the headlights than what Eloise is, though. Eloise is a very, very, I actually would say that Eloise is a stronger character than Penelope in the way that she's headstrong. She does what she has to. Like, Penelope gets quite emotional compared to Eloise. She is the kind to not faint, but you know, like she is a little bit more.
No, Penelope is not a fainter. Penelope is not someone who runs mad. But Eloise knows Penelope in a crisis is different than she shows most people. Eloise knows her to her core. So she believes if she turned and saw the danger, she would run. What Eloise is missing is the variable of turning around and seeing a man you are sexually attracted to, using every muscle in his body she is like, oh my geez, like, what's going on? Like, she's not even registering the balloon at all. She's not registering the carriage of the balloon. She's not registering anything but the rope
Well,
and
and
him
because I
pulling
don't
on
know
it
how,
and
but his
him
like,
leading
because he's
everyone.
got his arms fully exposed as well, which isn't, I don't think you really got to see much male skin at all back then. Like your arms were always covered to the cuffs all the time. And he's got his
No,
like,
men could roll up. They could roll up their sleeves. They were allowed to roll up their sleeves, but it's only in like in summer in certain situations they were allowed. That's about it that they could
but
show.
it,
Like
but
his
I'm saying
open
in
collars is really faux pas.
yeah, but I'm saying in general, you don't walk around every day and get to see much of the male form or female form,
Mm-mm.
really. Well, it still to this day confuses me how much cleavage they're allowed to show, but I digress. So he's
Because that's how you feed the children, and the bigger the cleavage, the more it was a fertility thing. They believed you were more fertile. They
well,
believed you would have more children because you have the milk sacs to
call
feed
me
a lot
a
of children.
milkmaid then, because I had milk and spade.
I have
So
milkmaid chesticles, but I don't know how much milk they would have.
it's actually got nothing to do with the amount of breast tissue. You can have A
I
cups
know
and
it
every
doesn't.
small one. But anyway, so this balloon is getting closer and closer to Penelope. She's absolutely frozen the spot. I think initially it was due to her being struck by Colin's physique, and then after that, I think she did just freeze with fear as it did
When
approach
she
closer.
sees, yeah, when
Oh,
she sees the
yeah,
carriage officially and she realizes her moment of being transfixed by him
has got her into a danger. Yeah,
got her into a situation, but she also clocks that second of he's doing this
for me.
to save me. Like
I
she realizes it.
And I think she has such a belief in Colin that he will never let anything hurt her. He will always protect her,
Right.
just like they talked about in season 2, the end of 2. I will
Yep.
always protect you, Penelope. I will always be here to take care of you. You are
Mm-hmm.
special, And so I
I
think
will
she
always look
has,
out for you. And I
yeah,
think in that moment, she's like, okay. So, like, honestly, from then on, like, her embarrassment over the kiss is like done there because she's
yeah,
like, okay, it didn't affect him in her mind.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
he's still looking out for me.
yeah.
But as I was saying before, like, this is a scene of how would you protect a person you love? He grabs that rope. He says, you'll help me now. Come help me now. But he doesn't know if they're actually
He
going to come
will
help
he
him. But
will command others. Yeah,
he's risking his own life. If nobody else ran up to help him, he'd be pulling on that rope by himself.
yeah.
He risked his own life. He demanded and commanded in that moment
Mm-hmm.
to save her. And he was yanking on that rope with every muscle down to his toenails. And then Debling hears her fall and turns and does, and you have a child, and I'm not saying this is just a loved one, somebody you love with all of your heart.
Yeah.
If something was coming toward them, or like in a car, are you putting your arm behind them if you have
Mm.
to hit the brakes? No, he slid in behind her and she was between
You
him
know what
and the
though?
balloon
He
carriage.
had to film that scene so many times because he said his facial features kept being so angry while he did it that he had to do it so many times that was just, he said they weren't even happy with it, but it was just the best take that there was. There was only so many times that they were going to redo that scene. Poor
Right,
Sam
but
Phillips.
there's, well, and I would like to know in the behind the scenes, was it ever choreographed? Because to me, that says a lot about
Yes,
his
it was.
character
It
in that
was.
moment.
It was.
It was, no, was it choreographed for him to go between her and the balloon carrot
Yeah.
ever? Or was it always him sliding in
No,
behind
no,
her?
no, it was him sliding in behind her.
Right. So that was a conscious choice they made that
Yes.
would depict Debling in a certain way.
Yeah.
He isn't in love with her. He's not going to give her love. So he's not putting himself in danger to protect her. It is all show. But Colin is
I
putting
mean,
himself in
realistically,
danger
it
to
was never
protect
going to
her.
kill her. It would have maybe bruised her up and hurt her, but it wasn't going to kill her, short of it landing on her head.
We don't know. It sounded heavy. I don't think it would have killed her, but it would have pushed her back towards the water,
Yeah.
and she would have gone into the water. We don't know how deep that water is. It's a lake.
It's not Alabama. There's no.
I'm just saying, when you're in love with someone, or
Yeah.
you love
Yeah.
someone,
Yeah.
like even a child or a sibling or whatever, your best friend, and you're in a car, even if you're just going to have a small fender bender, you're putting your arm out. I instinctively put my arm out for whomever is in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
If I have to hit my brakes. He doesn't block the person from the danger. He slides in behind. Basically, all he gets to do is cop a feel.
Yeah. And I think that part was just really put in there one, to show us Penelope, because there's people out there who were like, why did she stop? Why didn't she run? Like, is she stupid? And they completely missed the point of her massive sexual attraction to him in that moment, and how it just froze her on the place, because at this point they're trying to portray that Penelope's moved on. She's not affected by him anymore. She's now got the power. In this moment, he had the power back because she was just transfixed by him. With the final heave of the balloon, it just stops because you can tell that there is a wall, some kind of prop that stops the balloon actually putting Nicola Colin in any danger. There's some sort of wall barrier that it hits.
Well, there's a crane. It was on a crane and pulley system, so it was going to stop at a certain point. It had nothing to do with them yanking on the rope, really. It was going to stop at a certain point because the crane and pulley system only went to a certain point. So where she ran, where the blanket was, they had already measured and knew that the carriage was not going to make it that far. The balloon was not make it that far. So that's why she had to fall there.
But then Hawkins just comes along, and oh my lord, this irritates the budge enemy. He just comes along, he's like, thanks for holding the balloon for me, boys. Hops in, he's like,
let her go.
I'll see you later. Like, no, thanks for that. Like,
this whole scene in terms of the stunt bothers me because it cost a lot of money, and it did not provide the visual
so much time in filming.
It did not provide the oomph that they were hoping. No. Yes, Luke Newton got to have fun that day. Everybody gets to laugh because Luke Thompson's pants ripped like 4 or 5 times.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, that's in all the interviews.
What is he smuggling some oversized bungs in those pants, and they just couldn't contain anymore?
The type of pants he had were not stretchy. Like, they thought about Colin's pants. Like, Colin is the center focus of the camera.
Yeah.
So he's got to be able to bend and everything. Like, so he had stretchy pants. Like, they talked about his pants were stretchy pants. But
I'm sure that a lot of women wished that his clothing in that scene was a little bit more form-fitting to show everything a bit more.
Some of the angles, like, there's this perfect angle somebody did that's a behind-the-scenes photo of him, like, from the back when he's pulling, like, he's all of his might. Like, it makes me think of the interview where they're talking about his pants from,
you know what annoys me?
Season Penelope? 1. And she goes, me and Claudia were like, look at Luke's butt.
Season 1, the pants when he's playing, he's singing around the piano. But you know what annoys me in the scene as well? Penelope,
I want to know how they make his butt look like they do in pants. But when he de-pantses, he's got the littlest butt.
Well, he was a lot curvier in season 1 and 2.
No, I mean, even in season 3, like, I don't know, it's weird. It's like he's got a butt and pants, and then he takes his pants off, and it's little.
It's cute.
I'm not saying it's not.
Luke Newton,
I'm not saying that.
Luke Newton, your bottom is perfection. Don't let her pick on you. All bodies are beautiful. All bodies are beautiful.
I'm not picking. Patty. I'm just saying, like, what are these magical pants?
So the part that I'm trying to get out, but you just keep bringing it back to Colin's butt, and
There's nothing wrong with that.
I've got a butt. I'm mad at Penelope because she never thanks Colin for saving her. Like, all Dibbling does is swoops in and it would have been crushed alongside her, but he doesn't actually protect her in any way. He just gave her some physical.
She doesn't thank him either.
He comforted her, but he didn't protect her. She doesn't thank Colin, and Colin.
She doesn't thank Dibbling.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that Colin has all these girls flocking over him. Oh, wow, you're so amazing. You're so strong. Look at what you did. And all he has eyes for is Penelope, and he did all of that for her, only to look down and see, once again, Lord Dibbling come and steal her
helping
thunder.
her up. Yeah.
He stole her thunder.
But what he doesn't realize in that moment is Dibbling's helping her up. Dibbling is making sure she's okay or whatever in that moment. But she only has eyes for Colin. Well, she knows exactly what just happened.
You know what the funny thing is the next scene, we are going into the Hawkins Ball, which what song is playing? Which is exactly what this scene was. This scene should have had that song playing over it. It was a cheap thrill. It could have been so much more. And I mean, our listeners know that we like to keep things pretty positive on this pod. And there's a lot that we like about the season. We really, really do. But this was one of the, I think, absolutely missed opportunities that they could have had more impactful in this place that didn't take them so long to film.
Well, and even with the wind the way it was in all of those tents, I mean, that could have been a danger. You know, stuff could have blown in the wind. And when you think about a windstorm and come at her, like when you get caught up in fabric and stuff like that, she could have fallen in the water. He could have dove in. He's familiar with water because of his life on a ship, because they said he's been on a ship for 6 weeks. There, 6 weeks back in a 4-month trip. But there could have been other things that were more dangerous. And a lot of people on the internet have mentioned Sanditon, which is another period episodic show that is from Jane Austen's Unfinished. They do a hot air balloon scene with a danger where a baby or a person, you know, I've only seen so much of Sanditon, but what I've seen on the internet is people say like a person, whether it be a baby or a young lady or whatever, is caught in the carriage and the balloon starts to fly off, and this person has to save them so that they don't die, because they don't know, they're not an aeronaut, they don't know how to fly this. And it was more well done than this. And I think that they wanted the balloon because this is something that was occurring during the Regency era. People, you know, people were bored in the ton. Like there wasn't a lot of things to catch people's attention. So any little thing became something that people like fixated on. And the fashion, the puff sleeves, bubble sleeves really did come in because of being an aeronaut and ballooning and stuff like that. So they wanted to incorporate that, and that's great, but they could have found a way to make something kind of a little more dangerous or
impactful, just more impactful. In the way it was filmed. And I really do like the director of this episode, and I almost feel like maybe it wasn't how it was directed, but more so like we talk about in editing, because we do know that they used a lot of new to the show editors according to IMDb. So it might be an editing thing, but it was really like when she turns and looks at Colin, they should have edited where the camera was more focused on him, like not necessarily whole body all the time, but focus on his arms, on his thigh, something where you can see what she is looking at. You know, the look from across, I think her thank you, their communication in that look where he is just spent and he is like, oh, Debling did something too. Debling got close to her. Debling had his arms around my woman, right? Yes, that was like a physical touch that if that were not in the situation in which they were in and he had done that, they would have had to have been married. Like that is the extent of like having your body pressed against someone else's.
Because of Colin and the men and what they did, everybody was focused on them. Nobody saw Debling with his arms around her, helping her up or anything. The only people that clocked it were
Cressida,
Eloise and Cressida.
And that was what I was going to say. Like, and then Cressida was very clearly jealous at the physical intimacy that she can see happening between Penelope and Debling. And this is when she fakes an injury of her own, because Eloise is kind of like, oh, better luck next time. Like, Cressida, you'll find someone else, you know, that's kind of the implication. And Cressida's like, I'm not rolling over yet. I'm going to win this game still. And she fakes her an injury. And it's so clearly fake because she was
Nellie Olsen in that moment.
I don't think anyone was believing that, but Debling doesn't fall for it, but he falls for the a ploy for attention and helps her along. And we can see in the next ball scene that it does work in getting his attention, and obviously the conversation about the Great Orc and everything. But
I think he has to play as society expects. He has to play that what is coming out of their mouth is genuine and legitimate. So in a moment where you know somebody is being facetious or you know they are not being their true selves, you still have to play it off. And he very awkwardly does this. And in a couple of moments in this interaction of this day, openly scoffs, in my opinion, where he kind of laughs through his nose.
Yeah.
But the thing that bothered me about this whole thing was Eloise. This is the part that made me disappointed in Eloise, because she said, well, that was a thrilling distraction.
Yeah.
She never once acknowledges that Penelope was in danger at all, ever.
Yeah.
It's like the only 3 people that truly acknowledge or notice at any given time that Penelope was actually in danger are Colin, Lord Debling, and Penelope herself.
Yeah.
Cressida almost treats it like Penelope was seeking attention. Yes. Now I'm going to take the attention away from her. So there's only 3 people, and it's Colin notices first, like long before the danger is even there, when he says, does this look normal? When the balloon's acting weird in the wind.
Yeah.
He's figuring it out then that she's standing in a not great spot.
Yeah.
She figures it out after she notices how hot
Because
he is, pretty much.
he is singularly focused on her, and that is why anything that would ever impact her, he is aware of.
Yeah. And Debling doesn't notice until he hears her fall. I think
Yeah.
he's not so much reacting to the danger of the balloon as he is the fact that she fell. And now this caused her to possibly be in danger.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't in danger because he just turns and runs. Eloise turns and runs. Cressida turns for, I'm sure, all thinking different things, but all of them thinking self-preservation. The only person in this whole scene that not once thinks about their own safety is Colin.
Right.
Well, and her while she's looking at his hot.
So for today, gentle listeners, we will leave it there and continue on next week's episode where we will discuss the Hawkins Innovation Ball. If you have anything in particular you would like us to cover or any Bridgerton knowledge you would like us to share, please head to our Facebook page, The Ladies Bridgerton. And if you are enjoying our podcast, please remember to click follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you are listening. It is also a great help when people leave a review because it helps to work the algorithms to recommend us to other people. So once again, thank you for listening to the musings of two mad women. Yours truly, Tash the Kiwi.
And Lady Patty.